Hello, my presentation involves a project that I did recently designing a class for English majors to expose them to various digital media and digital technologies in the context of an experiential learning environment. So that is what I will be walking through today in my presentation. First, to consider what are some of the challenges and also a justification for teaching digital media skills in the humanities, and in my case specifically in the context of an English writing course. Well, many students in the humanities lack experience with digital media. They don't understand often how to create digital media, how to view or absorb digital media, the rhetorical affordances of digital media, because oftentimes that isn't necessarily a skill that's reinforced in many of their classes. It isn't some, but not all of their classes. So why do this in the humanities, and specifically in the case of an English course? I know research tells us that's, and this is just an obvious thing too, students in the 21st century need to develop digital media literacies, regardless of their discipline. So they're most often going to find themselves working some sort of job in some sort of position where they are going to have to leverage digital media and be not just a consumer but also a producer of digital media. Oftentimes the argument's made, well, that's a good idea, but this isn't the place to do it. Especially like in my discipline, for example, some might argue, well, an English course is not where we should be working on these skills. Leave that to communications or something like that. I think what we fail to recognize, however, is that when students work on digital media projects, the types of materials they need to produce to create these projects, and not just the technology, but also sort of the back end of it, involves things such as scripts, flowcharts, storyboards. So these are elements that do a couple of things. I mean, they allow students to practice writing skills. They develop research skills and skills in critical thinking and report writing, among various other skills. So in terms of my approach and what I hope the outcomes to be, again, as I said, my initial impetus here was to teach digital skills in the context of experiential learning in an English classroom, make connections between the skills that students are learning in the classroom and skills that they will need in the workplace. And I found that the way to do that was to contextualize the learning experience. By that I mean take it out of the classroom, solely out of the classroom, and involve the real world in some context. And the way we did this was that students adopted a local nonprofit agency as their client. So all the projects that they did throughout the semester were for the benefit of that client. I also, in this course, integrated digital badging. So students were awarded digital badges for the various projects that they did and the skills that they learned. This allowed them, not only gave them sort of motivation for wanting to do what the class required of them, but also to go beyond because they could earn digital badges. But then the digital badges also functioned as a micro-credential so that students could demonstrate to external audiences the skills that they had learned in this course. And then finally, another outcome of the course was that local nonprofits wound up getting a variety of digital marketing products that they would not otherwise be able to produce on their own. They lacked the resources, they lacked the money to get these sorts of projects produced for them. So now they were being provided with all this for free as part of the class. So it was kind of a nice arrangement, really. It was a good experience for the students. It was a good outcome for the nonprofits. And it also allowed students to network and learn something about the nonprofit that they were working with. And here I just provide a list of some of the nonprofits that students worked with in the class. These were all local to our particular university and the geographical area that it was in. But you can see here that it was a range, really. I mean, it was anything from food banks to a private school, to a facility for disabled adults, protecting natural resources, a local church, okay, and even some campus organizations, for example, the Campus Social Justice Club. So there was a wide range here, so a very wide variety of student interest, because they did pick a nonprofit based on their interest. And I did encourage them to do this, because I didn't want them spending the entire semester working for an organization that they weren't particularly interested in, obviously. So these choices were fostered by the students' interest and desires to learn more about these various aspects and organizations in the community. Okay, so what kind of projects did students produce? Well, they produced a variety. I decided to use a scaffolded approach, and by that I mean I started out initially, we considered working with images and text, because that was really what students were most familiar with. Then we progressed to audio, and we did podcast, and then we integrated video, and this involved doing things like screencasts and blogs. We also did a meme campaign, and the meme campaign was students created a series of memes that they could share on social media that somehow made the public aware of their organization or one of the topics or causes affiliated with their organization. So they used memes because we talked about this in the class, that this was an easy way of attracting new audiences perhaps and relating to even younger audiences. So in terms of the software that students used, there was a variety of software that they learned. Most students came to this class with very little or no skills using this software. So this is what they learned to use throughout the semester. Photoshop for image editing, video editing software, Audacity for podcasting, then also third-party web-based sites for publishing their work, such as SoundCloud and YouTube. And then also they had to work with a variety of social media platforms, because this was how they were sharing the work that they were doing on behalf of their clients. So they got a good range here of working with digital media and understanding digital media. So in terms of how we approach projects, this was the general pattern that we followed. We started with mentor text. A mentor text was a professional example of something that the student wanted to do. So we went out and identified those, studied them, had students study them, deconstruct them. So they had a good idea of what their goal could be, what they could shoot for. Then they had to decide what approach might best meet the needs of their client. So then they had to, once they decided that, what they were going to do, what the project was, what they were going to do the project on for their client, then we came back in the classroom and they provided a pitch for the intended project to the class. They also pitched to their client as well. So the purpose of the classroom pitch was so that the students and I could give feedback on the project, suggest additional areas the student might want to cover, different ways the students could go about doing the project. Then the same sort of exchange happened outside of the classroom with the client. So the student would pitch what they wanted to do to the client would have feedback, and so it developed from there. And then they had to develop sort of the initial materials for whatever project it was that we were working on. And oftentimes this involved writing scripts, creating a storyboard, a flow chart, really depending on the type of project that they were doing. Then they went ahead and created the project. Okay, then we came back again with the draft of that project, both in the classroom and to the client, to get further feedback now on the finished or almost finished project. And then they had time to revise and refine, and then eventually they would publish and share that project through various social media outlets. Most of the projects, I should mention, were usually to make people aware of the organization, okay, to provide kind of a digital marketing approach to whatever the cause was that the organization was focused on. Okay, so what I see is the benefits of this approach. I think there are several benefits. One, as I mentioned earlier, you're providing digital media skills, a new skill set to students who might not otherwise have that skill set. You're exposing students to secondary software and technologies. Okay, and this develops skills in not only working with these technologies, but being able to communicate about these technologies. It certainly created networking opportunities for students within a local community. Since they were out there in the community, they were networking with their organization. Oftentimes, this led to networking with other organizations or other individuals, depending on the project. For example, doing something like an interview. And also the secondary benefit of this was that it created a positive presence in the community for not just our department, but also the college and the university at large. So there was sort of a dual benefit there. Then, as I mentioned, the local organizations, they were provided with projects, digital marketing projects that they might not otherwise be able to produce on their own. Finally, then, I think the course offered an opportunity for students to showcase their skills, not only sharing this work with the client and online through social media, but also, as I mentioned previously, by earning digital badges. And then these digital badges became essentially micro-credentials for these students. They could post these on LinkedIn or any kind of site where they wanted to profile their skills and potentially network in the future with potential future employers. This slide just gives you a snippet of some of the comments, the final comments that the students had about the course. And I think we see here that the students did react positively for the most part. I would say overall, it was a very positive reaction to this approach. They liked the idea of doing different projects. They liked the idea of working with digital media. They certainly liked the idea of being in the community and working with a nonprofit. So you can see that reflected here in the comments, that they were working with different types of media. They appreciated that. They liked working with the clients. Okay, so all that, I guess I could say in general, to sum up, the students had a very positive approach to this course. Okay, so that is the project, essentially, in a nutshell. I have my contact information there. If you wanted to follow up in any way, you could contact me via email. Feel free to do so. Okay, that's it for now.